Well, this is Doug McIntyre, one of the editors at ClimateCrisis247, and I'm with David Calloway from London, who's the other editor of Climate Crisis 247. And we're going to talk about chocolate today. We hear a lot about chocolate in the news for a simple reason, and that is chocolate has become prohibitively expensive for many people. David, why is that?
Well, it's one of those fascinating ripples from climate change, Doug, and one of the ones that few might have predicted. We're used to thinking of climate change causing floods and hurricanes and fires and stuff, but the economic consequences of climate change are huge, and one of them we're seeing right now is in the cocoa markets. Most of cocoa comes from West Africa, and West Africa has been plagued by drought, extreme heat, and disease in some of the in its cocoa products, and it's caused a dramatic decline in the amount of cocoa that it's exporting to the rest of the world and to the major chocolate makers, and that's causing prices to soar. I think as much as 70% in some cases. We've seen this in just the last several months, so it's creating an enormous, imagine if gas prices went up 70%, right? It's creating an enormous impact on the chocolate market just ahead of Easter, as a matter of fact, but it did at Valentine's Day too. And it's causing some smaller chocolate makers to have to abandon making chocolate altogether. So, that is, it's one of those fascinating climate change ripples, and it's impacting markets in ways that we did not foresee.
One of the other interesting things is that if you look at cocoa futures, the assumption right now is that weather catastrophes are going to continue to do this in West Africa. But it's like, will it be drought? Will it be heat? Will it be flooding? Climate change has become so complicated. It's like, well, which plague is going to hit which part of the world? But there isn't relief coming for this in terms of the impact of the climate on West Africa. And you're right. If you look at the economics of this, many of the smaller players in chocolate simply have said, we can't afford to buy it, wait for it to be sold as chocolate, because we don't have the capacity financially. We can't fund that difference in time between buying cocoa, making chocolate, selling chocolate. Then the big guys like Hershey's, they've simply said, okay, we'll buy what's available, but we're going to sell it to you, the consumer, the markup we've got. So you see chocolate prices going up, I don't know, 50, 60, 70%. Theoretically, that should dent demand, shouldn't it?
Oh, I would think so. I mean, a box of chocolate, I bought my wife one for Valentine's Day, was probably $25. That goes up to 50. That definitely creates a demand impact. I think we'll start to see it play out in some of the major holidays like Easter coming up. But you'll start to see less people eating chocolate. You'll start to see people looking for substitutes. And ultimately, Doug, I think you'll start to see the larger chocolate makers, Hershey, Nestle, experiment with fake chocolate, synthetic chocolate. We have plant-based meat. Why can't we have plant-based, some sort of alternative chocolate? The people's sweet tooth and desire for chocolate is not going to go away. So companies will find a way to fill that. But it could be that actual real cocoa-based chocolate becomes a luxury item that only the very wealthy can afford.
So here comes science in terms of an effect. Weight loss drugs like Ozempic mean that people tend to eat less sugar, candy, starches. There is a belief right now that is going to actually affect chocolate demand, that fewer people will eat chocolate because of this. Does that seem rational? I mean, you look at Oprah, you look at all these people, and people say, I can get thin, I just need to take a pill.
Well, Ozempic is a huge fad right now, and there are people who are saying it's going to cause giant dents in chocolate or the entire sweets market, and it may already be having an impact. But these types of things tend to come and go. Ozempic is the latest and most effective, but people have been taking diet pills of some sort for a long time, and it hasn't affected the market too much. So I would say it's still too early to say what the Ozempic impact is going to be, but it is certainly the latest and greatest of the skinny drugs that you can take. And so we'll see if that will have any long-term impact on the market. I think, but the combination, you're right, of Ozempic causing a lack of demand and climate change causing a lack of supply, both of those continue to drive prices up, as the chocolate makers are going to have to find ways to cover that.
Now, there's a theory that was reported at Bloomberg today, and that is that Ozempic ruins chocolate companies. It was like an analyst call on Wall Street. These drugs are going to wreck the chocolate business. There's another way to look at this, though, and that is if it just lowers demand enough, it may be that chocolate prices actually start to come down, and you have science, in essence, saving consumers from the effect of climate change.
Wouldn't that be something? Yeah. That's an alternative way to look at the market forces. But yeah, I mean, it would be if suddenly the demand for chocolate worldwide, this is assuming Ozempic can become available worldwide, right? And people can afford it. If it fell by 20%, I think the first reaction is higher prices. That's what we're seeing now. If the second reaction is that prices start to come down, yep, maybe we do see an impact on climate change. Every little bit helps.
Let's look at this through a slightly wider lens. If you look at cocoa is sort of in the lead of things that are going away because of climate change, commodities, crops. I mean, you could actually see a world in which some other foods, maybe essential foods, become prohibitively expensive.
Absolutely. I mean, all sorts of crops, meat. We've been kind of not paying attention while lots of species have been going extinct over the last 20 years. But if we start to see like huge declines in certain foodstuffs, that's going to have an impact. I mean, it seemed like the world was going to end when nobody could get toilet paper a few years ago. Imagine if nobody can get chocolate or nobody can get bread, because we've had crops dying out and nobody can get bananas. In fact, bananas were in the news just this week. They were saying climate change could kill bananas. The same forces that are impacting cocoa are impacting banana trees and banana exports. Imagine a world without bananas. It's one of those things we're going to have to look at and take care to manage going forward.
Well, let's hope we don't have to hand out weight loss drugs to everybody to solve some of these problems. But it is interesting now to see that you've got science on both sides of some of these issues. You've got the science of trying to slow climate change, and now you've got really science affecting demand for some of these things. So
right.
As we move forward, this is going to happen at faster and faster cycles as certain foods and commodities start to go away. So we'll be back with everybody here. We'll come back in a few months and we'll look at the price of chocolate and see if there are any of the things that we've just talked about that affect prices at say mid-year. Thanks for joining me from London, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, Doug.